So we've been following along about Joseph, and last week, for those of you who were here, we were talking about the reconciliation between Joseph and his brothers, especially Judah, who was the spokesperson for the 11 brothers. I wanted us to look at this insert of a conversation between God and Jacob, because at this point the story is really Joseph's, right? Joseph has already been made second in command over Egypt. Already there's the famine, and Joseph has been on behalf of the Pharaoh rationing out food. At the very end of this parsha, it gets to the point where the people no longer have money to pay for the food, and are talking about giving their livestock, which they do, in order to get food back. And then they also go back to Joseph and ask to indenture themselves and to sell their land so that they will not starve. And Joseph makes that happen. And that is where our Torah portion closes. But I want to take a moment to share with you something that I actually shared with the board yesterday a little bit. So this is a quote. In order to go down, Yerida, in order to go up, you have to go down, right? So why does God take this moment? Why do we pause the narrative from Joseph's glory about reuniting with his brothers and bringing his whole family to Egypt and living in wealth and making a name for themselves? Why do we take this little pause in the text in order for God to say, don't be scared going down to Egypt, because I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to make you a great nation there. And then we're going to go up. I'm going to go up. And the Hebrew is one of those double verbs, right? It's ya'aleh, and then it's olah. And so it's we're really gonna come up. I'm really gonna bring you up. So it's almost like the way the Hebrew is written, it sort of indicates this bounce that I was talking about with you guys. That if you throw down a rubber ball really, really hard, like my 5-year-old will, to break windows and stuff, it bounces, it shoots right back up, right? And that the Hebrew is telling us that the reverse gravity is going to take effect, because God comes down with Israel, not just Jacob, but Israel, us, all of us, into the darkness. And I was mentioning yesterday was the solstice, so the lowest point of light in the year. And it's no shock that we have these light-filled holidays during this season in many faiths. And one of my revered colleagues, Reverend Jeremiah Caliente from the Unitarian Universalist Church, was talking about how as humans, what we want to do is bring light, cast the darkness out. But he brings up a very good point, Reverend Jeremiah, that there is something to be learned in the darkness, and there is something to be gleaned from the darkness. And without that darkness, we cannot spring back up. So people come to this sanctuary from many different backgrounds and many different journeys in life, right? We're all on a different path, but every one of us, if we're not experiencing the darkness now, has previously experienced it or someday will. And I want this teaching of, this is the before our people actually becomes the people that God led forth out of Egypt. But in order to become that people that led unto the nations, we first had to be slaves in Egypt. And that's what this text comes to teach us. We do not gloat about our history. The first thing that we tell anyone about who we are is that we were slaves in Egypt. That is our story. And in order to become who we are, we had to be slaves in Egypt. I am not saying that every negative experience is for the sake of something wonderful. I think sometimes experiences are just bad. But the God-given truth that I believe is that we have the power to transform that darkness into the light that comes next. Slavery was not good. It did grind us into the diamond that we are, but it would have been nice if we didn't have to be enslaved for 400 years. I think that's okay too. But since we did have to be pushed in that crucible, we can take with us into the future that any crucible we find ourselves in has the capacity to be the bounce that gets us up again. So please take that into this really heartbreaking 2 weeks while I will not be with you. I'm sure it's going to be a time of great darkness and you will not be able to get through it, regardless of the fact that we have amazing Divrei Torah givers. So Brian will be here giving a Devar Torah, and Michael Cohen will be here, the taller, and we'll have Torah readers, and we'll have Teddy, the assistant rabbi, and it'll be great. But if you should need, a little bit of oomph to get you through those 2 weeks, Cheryl Stetcher, remember, we go down in order to bounce up. Cheryl's gonna miss me.
Definitely.
But you're gonna be okay, and I'm gonna come back so replenished. I won't be making any mistakes on any of the tunes. You'll be shocked. Okay, so my prayer for us is that we do take this teaching from the Torah into this week and into this dark period, and that we know that there's always a lightness after the darkness. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.